Hey guys, and welcome to the next tutorial video. In this video, we're actually going to learn to create functions, which this is, I think, when the tutorial videos start getting really cool, because there's a lot of things you can do with functions, and everything I've taught you so far is really important, but this is kind of like one of the biggest things you need to learn, because they make life so much easier. So you've probably noticed how we've typed, let's actually make a new file here. I've shown you the input function. This is like a built-in, it's a purple word, so you know it's like a built-in Python keyword. It's a built-in function inside of Python. And then I've also shown you the integer keyword, which it can take a string and actually convert it to the integer version of the string. So this will convert the character 5 to the integer 5. So these are like built-in functions inside of Python, but you can actually make your own, and you can type like a word, like my function. You can type something like that, and it'll whatever you've told the computer what my function is, it'll actually execute all that code. So you could have this function equal like 20 lines of code, and instead of typing those 20 lines of code, you can just enter this word right here, and it runs all of it. So it's pretty easy to make one. The keyword you want to start with is def, and that stands for define. So we're defining a function, and then you give it a name. So I'm going to make one called say hello. So that's the name of our function, and then you want to put open and close parentheses, and then a colon. So this is kind of the first line of making your own function. We're defining a function that tells the interpreter, hey, whatever's following right here, he's actually defining what a function is, and he's given it the name say hello, and then you do open and close parentheses and then a colon. And then you'll see when we hit enter after the colon, it indents our cursor for us, which means, hey, we're now in this function definition block. So everything within this function definition block is like what this function does, all the lines of code that represent this function. So this one's going to be pretty easy. It's just going to print hello world. So that's all this function does. So if I run this, let's go ahead and save it. Sure. As you can see, it didn't do anything. It just gave us a blank, like a blank line with nothing in it. And that's because we defined what the function is, but we never actually called the function or ran the function. So once we've made it at the top here, we go to like we go to the bottom of our code, and we can type in say hello like that. Oh, say hello. So we type in the name of our function followed by open and close parentheses, and right here it says, oh, you want to run the say hello function? Well, let me go back up to the top, and then it actually does what that function's supposed to do. So if I run this, it actually says hello world. And you can do this, we can do it multiple times. And it should say it 3 times now. So see, now it says it 3 times. You can also do, instead of typing it in 3 times like that, we can go back and use our for loop. So for I in range 3, which means do this 3 times. We're going to do the say hello function 3 times. So run it, and this should do the exact same thing. Hello world, did it 3 times. So let's make another function. We're going to define another function and call it say message. And on this one, so we've got def for define a function. We're going to call it say message. And this time, inside these parentheses, we're going to put something, and I'm going to type in MSG, which just means message. So when I type MSG here, it can be any word you want at all. It's you can make it whatever you want. I can make cat, dog, name, message, whatever word you want to use, just like a variable. But what this means is when you call this function later on in your code, like say message, inside the parentheses to call it, it actually requires you to type in some type of value to get thrown into this message variable that you made up here. So for instance, we've defined a function called say message, and it takes a message argument. By the way, when you see these right here, these are called parameters. This MSG You can have multiple too and separate them by commas. So I can have 3 parameters. So in order to run this function, it takes 3 parameters. I'm going to erase cat and dog because I only want this one to take 1. But now anywhere inside this same message function block, I'm going to do print message. So now what this is saying, define a function called sayMessage, and it takes a value. So when this is called later on in my code, I have to throw something in the parentheses, and that when that gets thrown in the parentheses, it's going to bring whatever that is into the function and actually do something with it. So all this code does is print whatever the message was that got thrown into here. So in our main program, I run the sayMessage function. I open close parentheses, but inside the parentheses, I'm going to say hi there. And now if I run this, it says hi there. So what happened? So if I'm running the sayMessage function that I've defined up here, and inside the parentheses when I'm running this program, I'm actually passing the argument. The argument is the string hi there. That's going up here and replacing this MSG variable. So anywhere you see MSG within this function block, it's replacing it with the word hi there. So MSG is going to get replaced with hi there, and it's going to print hi there. And you can run it, and it works. So let's make some more. Let's do this. Let's make some variables. So name, I'm going to make a variable called name. And for some reason, my backspace key wasn't working. So name, and we'll do Jody. And we'll actually do this. Since Jody is a name, we can put because this is a string, name, and Jody is a string, I can do a dot after it and do title like we learned before. And that'll actually make Jody capitalized. And then we'll make another variable called age, and we'll do 30. And now we'll make a function called isOld, and it takes a name and an age. All right, I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. So we have a function called isOld, and it requires a name and it requires an age. And all it's going to do is it's going to check the age, and it says if you're over 50, print to the screen you're old, and if you're older, younger than 50, it prints you're young. So we're going to do if age is greater than 50, print you are old, else print you are not old. All right. And let's go ahead and type in isOld, and we're going to pass in, it requires a name and an age. So the name we're going to use is our name up here. This is actually using this name right here, this variable. We're going to throw it in as the name. And we're going to throw in this age variable that we have right here. It's getting thrown in there. So let's go ahead and run this. And it says you are not old, and that's because age was 30 and the age got thrown in here, and it says if 30 is greater than 50, which it's not, so it does print you are not old. Now you might have realized we didn't use the name in here, but what if I wanted to print like your name and say you are old, or your name and say you are not old? There's actually a bunch of ways you can do that, but this is like the easiest way to do that, and it's called a F string. And the way you do this is right before your string, where you have the parentheses right there at the beginning, just put an F, and that means this string is now a format string. And it's really cool because what you can do is you can put squiggly brackets within your string now, and within the squiggly brackets you can put a variable name. And anywhere you put that variable name, it'll put the value of that variable in there. So we have that variable called name that this function took. So we're going to pass in our name up here. So it's passing in Jody. So anywhere, when we run it, we're passing in Jody to the function. Jody gets thrown in here. And then within our function, we're throwing Jody in here. So Let's make this a function string or a format string as well. So now it should use our name, and let's also make it tell us how old we are. You are years old. We can also put age right here. All right, so now if we run it, it's going to say, Jody, you are not old. You are 30 years old. But if we do like 60, Jody, you are old. You are 60 years old. And so that's how it works. Don't feel bad if you're real confused on parameters and arguments. It took me I don't know why. Once you understand them, it just clicks and it all makes sense. But for some reason, when I was learning programming, parameters and arguments and understanding exactly how they work and how they get thrown into functions really confused me. But what I'd recommend is watch like 50 other tutorials on YouTube, keep practicing them, read other people's code, and eventually it will click. But this is one of the things, and I've talked to a lot of people that started programming, and this is one of the things, like making a function and learning how to use parameters and arguments for some reason really confuses them. And it confused me too. And what's weird is once you understand it, you'll be real confused on why you're confused, because it just makes sense and it's super easy to understand. But it's just something you have to practice, and every time it'll just click and you'll be good. Like it won't be confusing at all, but you just have to practice. So you can just go ahead and practice and like make your own functions. And what I would just recommend watching a bunch of other tutorials online, and eventually you'll get it. I'll see you guys in the next video.